Can you be a fan of something if your whole relationship to it is complaining about how much it sucks? A comic I've been reading for about 15 years now put out a strip today asking this question. At what point, if any, does saying someone's not a fan go from gatekeeping to fairly pointing out that they don't really like that thing? To which I'd say that fandom is when you spend your recreational time persistently consuming content of or about the material of which you're a fan and or participating in creating that content. So if you spend all your time watching a thing you hate in order to hate it, listening to other people who talk about how much they hate it, and creating content that communicates that hate to other people who hate it, people who like it, or the people who make it, then yeah, you're a fan. But while a person might be a fan of, let's say, Star Wars, if they really enjoy the new Star Wars movies, or a fan of Star Wars if they really enjoy tweeting abuse at the people involved in making the new Star Wars movies, they're not exactly in community with each other the way we tend to imagine fans are. They're not in the fandom. They're in a parallel hate fandom. The Star Wars hate fandom illustrates an important point about where these things come from too, because its participants were almost all previously in the Star Wars fandom. It's unusual, though not impossible, to find your way into a hate fandom from a place of disinterest. It happens for sure because some hate fandoms are very active about recruiting, but the usual pathway to hate fandom goes from being a big fan of the object of your interest to that object doing something that feels like an unacceptable transgression to you. Because then you're presented with a choice. You either have to go and find something else to do with your time or keep spending that time engaging with the content. It's easier to change your beliefs than your behaviors, so the more heavily your life consisted of participating in the fandom, the more likely you change why you're spending all this time engaging with it than change the fact that you're engaging with it. Rather than not read the blogs, you could read them to leave hostile comments. Rather than not go to the convention, you could show up to shout abuse at the performers. And I just want to make a clarifying point here in case this is coming across as a neutral observation. It's not. I think hate fandom is a bad thing. It's unhealthy for the people involved and for the people targeted, and the way that it's bad for the people targeted isn't ever actually helpful. And that last point is important, because if you hate something or someone, you probably aren't worried about harming them. But like, while harming individuals may sometimes be an inevitable consequence of preventing them from doing further harm, when doing the harm is the point, and when having them continually available to harm is the basis for your recreational activity, the result is rarely, if ever, an end to the harm they cause. Like, there are some people whose engagement with American politics is being in the anti-Republican hate fandom, who share a lot of memes about how much Republican congresspeople are evil or greedy or look like turtles, and it looks like political engagement if you squint, but it doesn't ever actually result in meaningful counteraction to the Republican Party. Or like how the internet leftism fandom is about hating capitalism, but mostly expresses that by creating or consuming media content on for-profit distribution platforms, criticizing some subset of a constellation of people who are either popular media figures in the alt-right fandom or popular media figures in the internet leftism fandom, but are doing it wrong. And just like the Doctor Who fandom was still out there in the 25 years that the show was off the air, hate fandoms persist regardless of the ongoing behaviors of their objects. There are people who can no longer exist publicly on the internet because of their hate fandoms, lying in wait and hungry for new material. Nothing they do can make them go away, because the activity, participating in the hate, comes first, and the reason for doing it can be adjusted to fit the circumstance. It's not about the target, it's about having something to do and connecting with other people doing it. You know, like fandom.